Chapter 1. The Voice Among the Tents. Inheritance in the Sands. The desert was breathing heat, like a massive, tired beast whose breath scorched everything alive. The wind carried the scent of hot sand and old smoke from the altars, a bitter, pungent aroma of past sacrifices and an endless journey. The sun hung overhead like an unavoidable judge, measuring not time, but patience. Tent after tent stood amidst the scorching stones, like temporary, fragile shelters for the eternal people, and the people of Israel prepared for yet another stop. Every day was a struggle, every step a feat. Their lives were filled with noise, the clatter of dishes, the cries of merchants, the weeping of children, the humming of men's voices discussing the future division of the land, which was still just a distant, mythical promise. But amidst the thousands of voices speaking of water, food, and camp affairs, of the strength of muscle and the right of primogeniture, one day another voice rang out. Quiet, like the whisper of faith, yet full of a strength capable of shifting the stone slabs of ancient laws. The voice of 5 women, Mahla, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. Their names were tender, like desert flowers, but their hearts were strong, like the cedars of Lebanon. They were 5 sisters, 5 destinies, woven into one harsh knot of injustice. The daughters of Zelophehad, from the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph. Their father died in the wilderness, fading quietly like a candle in a tent, without reaching the promised land, and left no sons behind. This was his sole, fatal curse in the eyes of a society built on male names and male lines. They were women without an inheritance, and thus, without a future, without roots, without a voice in the land that the Lord had given to their fathers. Even in the dream of the promised land, there was no place for them, for their existence was tied to the name of a man who was no more. Mahla, the eldest, carried the burden of responsibility. Her gaze was deep and troubled. She felt the sand running out from under their feet. Will our Father's name really dissolve into these endless sands, like a shadow? This thought burned her every night. Noah, the darkest among the sisters, was the voice of their determination. Her inner fire was stronger than the desert heat. Hogla, quiet and serene, was the anchor of their hope. Her silent presence radiated an unwavering faith in God's justice, despite human laws. Milcah, dreamy and gentle, embodied the beauty of their lost name. She did not want their story to end on a sad note. And Tirzah, the youngest, whose eyes had not yet lost their youthful sparkle, was a symbol of the future, a future they were fighting to win, a future that could either erase their name or make it eternal. Every day they heard the men in the camp discussing the allocation of lots. They heard maps being drawn, fertile valleys and vineyards being divided, and every time the tribe of Manasseh was mentioned, their hearts clenched with pain. Their father, Zelophehad, served, suffered, and died in the wilderness. But his merit, his contribution to this great migration, was to vanish merely because of a biological fact, the absence of a son. These 5 women became the embodiment of the silent injustice that underpinned the ancient world. But something more than despair awoke in them. A sacred indignation awoke, not anger against people, but anger against indifference to the fate of a name. They realized if they remained silent, their father would die twice, physically and spiritually, as a memory. And so, one day, under the rays of the midday sun, they decided to go, not to the tent of weeping, but to the tent of the covenant, to the place where human laws were equated with divine truth. They were not just going for land. They were going for the restoration of honor and the eternal right to exist. Chapter 2. The dispute by the tabernacle. Courage against tradition. The morning sun barely pierced the heavy curtains of the tabernacle, casting long, shaded stripes on the sand. This was the place of greatest holiness, the heart of the camp, where man met the unseen. Moses sat by the entrance, his face exhausted from years of dialogue with God and constant conflict with the people. Along with him, the priest Eleazar, his successor in ministry, whose gaze was always focused on rituals and order, and the elders, gray-haired, severe judges, who were the living embodiment of millennia-old traditions. One morning, as they were discussing the most complex issues of tribal division, 5 women appeared before them. They did not come as petitioners. They came as claimants. Their step was confident, although shadows of fear and judgment already fell upon their shoulders, shadows cast by the entire millennia-old history of patriarchy. The crowd standing around parted. It was not just etiquette, it was surprise bordering on shock. Women rarely came to the judgment of God, and if they did, it was with complaints about domestic issues, not with a challenge to the law. Mahlah stepped forward, her gaze meeting Moses' tired look. Her voice, though initially quiet, gained strength as she began to speak. Our father, Zelophehad, died in the wilderness. He was not a rebel. He died not for the sin of Korah, when the earth split open and swallowed the traitors, but by his own destiny in the wilderness, like thousands of the faithful who bore the burden of our wandering. Why should his name disappear from the book of life, from the book of inheritance, merely because he had no sons? Does God, who sees the heart, condemn his name only because of the absence of male progeny? We are his heiresses. We are his memory. We ask not for mercy, but for justice. The words fell like heavy stones on the quiet morning assembly. Moses raised his head. His gaze was attentive, serious. He saw not 5 women, but 5 prophets speaking a truth that he, the great lawgiver, had failed to notice himself. The elders exchanged glances. Indignation was visible in their eyes. How dare women challenge tradition? Eleazar leaned forward, as if wanting to discern in these women not only courage, but also faith. He, as a priest, felt a sacred touch in their words. Milta, standing behind, felt the tension constricting the air. She saw some men's faces darken with anger. They understood. If Moses agreed, it would not just change the fate of 5 families, it would shake the very foundation of their social order. It was a dramatic conflict between the letter of the law, which was silent about daughters, and the spirit of the law, which demanded the preservation of the name. Moses, feeling the weight of the moment, could not simply brush them aside. He had been taught by God that true law serves not to oppress, but to restore. His heart, tired from human murmuring, now rekindled, but not with anger, but with the desire to find the truth. He did not argue. He knew that before him was not human wisdom, but a divine riddle. He surveyed the desert, the tabernacle, the 5 women, and understood. The answer was not in his mind, but in the heart of the covenant. Chapter 3. The Judgment of the Lord. Thunder in the silence, Moses did not answer immediately. He retreated to the tabernacle, to the place where the glory of God hung as a thick cloud over the Ark of the Covenant. He fell prostrate, seeking an answer from the Lord. He did not pray for God to confirm his own wisdom. He prayed for God to reveal his justice. The silence was deep, as if the desert itself stood still, listening to the inaudible dialogue between the prophet and the Creator. The crowd waited, its excitement resembling the anticipation of an earthquake. Moses lay prostrate for a long time, his soul grappling with tradition, with logic, with the expectations of the elders. He was the lawgiver, but now he himself appealed to the supreme lawgiver, acknowledging that even his wisdom was not perfect. This moment was an act of the deepest humility. And then, when the air became so tense that it seemed ready to burst, the voice sounded. The voice that Moses knew as his own breath. The voice that made the inner walls of the tabernacle tremble, but was heard only by him. The daughters of Zelophehad speak justly. In their petition, there is no rebellion, only pure truth. Give them an inheritance among the brothers of their father, and transfer his portion to them. Let their name not vanish. This is my law, but the Lord did not stop there. He continued, giving a universal law, a new rule that forever changed the inheritance right of Israel. This shall be for the children of Israel, a statute of judicial law. If a man dies and has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. And if he has no daughter, you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. Moses arose, his face shining, as it had once shone after descending from Mount Sinai. But now it was the radiance not of severity, but of grace. He turned to the people, and his voice rang out loudly, like thunder, filled with the power of the word of God. Thus says the Lord, you hear, not human wisdom, but the will of heaven. If a man dies and has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. Remember this day. The crowd stirred. It was a shock to their world. But Moses raised his hand. His gesture was final and immutable. This is the law of the Lord, verified before his face, so that the name may not perish among the generations, so that every faithful servant of God may have a memory in the land we shall receive. This was the triumph of faith over tradition, and the victory was won by 5 women. Chapter 4. Justice in the Wilderness, Triumph and Reverence. A whisper arose among the people, but now it was not murmuring or anger. It was a whisper of reverence and amazement. Some spoke, shaking their gray heads. Does this not contradict ancient customs? Our fathers did not know this. Their faith struggled with habit. Others looked at the women with respect bordering on sacred awe. For the first time, among thousands of men, among warriors and elders, whose word was always final, a woman's word was heard not as weakness, but as pure, unwavering justice descended from heaven. The 5 sisters stood like 5 pillars of a new truth. The tension that held their bodies relaxed, and they felt a wave of emotion stronger than the desert heat. Mahla quietly whispered, her voice slightly trembling, "The Lord heard us. He did not leave our father without a name." Her sisters held hands. That grip was stronger than any law or chain, and tears mixed with the dust of the desert, becoming a holy balm that washed away fear and doubt. They did not receive a sword, did not receive authority, did not receive high rank, but they received the most valuable thing, a right that changed the course of history. They did not just win back a parcel of land, they won back the dignity of a name and gave the world a new precedent of God's truth. Noah felt her inner fire turn into a quiet, warm light. She looked at Moses and understood his greatness. a great leader is not one who blindly adheres to old rules, but one who is capable of questioning God and accepting an answer that overturns his own order. The elders, who were skeptical just an hour ago, now bowed their heads, acknowledging that the voice in the tabernacle was higher than their age and their experience. This was not just a legal decree, it was a psychological victory. The people, who had been too focused on their own suffering and murmuring, now saw a living example of how personal faith can change collective destiny. Justice came in the most unexpected form, through the mouths of 5 women, and this reminded everyone in the camp that God listens not only to those who speak the loudest, but also to those who speak the most sincerely. Chapter 5. The New Law and the Hope of Generations. The Echo of the Covenant. When the people moved on, a few days later, continuing their endless march toward the Promised Land, the daughters of Zelophehad walked among the camp, not as rebels, but as those who had become a living part of the law, reminding them that justice has no gender. They were no longer nameless. They became the name of the law. Their faith became law, their voice a testament. It was a quiet yet mighty revolution in consciousness. Milcah walked, holding the youngest, Tirzah, and looked at her portion of the desert, knowing that soon this sand would turn into their land, their inheritance. She thought of her father, Zelophehad, and felt that his soul had finally found peace. His name was saved. And every time the wind carried sand across the valley, and when a new division of land was made, the elders remembered the day when God spoke the truth through the mouths of women. They remembered not only the law itself, but how close they had been to denying the 5 sisters, to failing to hear the voice that was in the silence of the tabernacle. This law was passed down from generation to generation as a testament to God's attention to detail, to personal destiny, to the justice that embraces all. And in every daughter of Israel who sought her place under the sun, in every woman who desired dignity, lived the shadow of those 5 who were not afraid to speak to Moses. Their example became an invisible but unbreakable pillar, supporting feminine dignity in a harsh, masculine world. For sometimes God raises the voice of the quietest, those whose words are usually lost in the noise of the camp, to awaken those who are accustomed to silence, and even those who are accustomed to ruling. The daughters of Zelophehad taught Israel the most important lesson of the desert. True faith is not just submission to what is written, but also the courage to question what does not align with God's justice. They walked forward, carrying their inheritance, an inheritance that was written not on stone tablets, but in the history of their people.